You've got to look at what people do, not what they say. Now, as we've seen, the Democrats, of course, they want you to only look at what Donald Trump says, not what he does, because his agenda has been so successful. But on their end, they want you to only hear what they say, because they have done things.
The Pentagon war planners have rightfully said that 90% of modern warfare is informational. That's why it's more important than ever that all of you watching subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at Real Alex Jones, because InfoWars is the front line of the fight. And without your help and support, we will fail. With your support and with your prayers, we will be victorious against the globalists together.
I just had a weird joke hit me, David, when I was thinking about just coming back. We've been calling the Trump-Russia investigation a witch hunt, right? Because it is a witch hunt.
We know where the witches are.
Now you've got actual witches trying to cast spells from Satan onto Donald Trump, like Lana Del Rey, amongst the others. And the big story today, a pastor says a senior Republican has told him a plan to take out Trump and has basically said that that is inevitable. Let's go to that clip now. Bombshell clip of the pastor.
What Monday was, Tuesday was a low, because I got to go into the Congress and spend 3 hours from 9:30 in the evening to 12:30 a.m. with one of the senior ranking members of Congress. And he told me, and of course, this is what I said on CBN, but they cut it out, but I'm going to go public with this because we have to. He said, there is a plot on Capitol Hill to take the president out. I said, you mean by impeachment or by indictment? He said, no, to take him out. He will be removed suddenly from office. Well, you can read between the lines. I said, look, that's not going to happen. He said, well, really, there's nothing we can do to stop it. I said, we are going to stop it because we're going to mobilize the body of Christ to pray. So listen, they started a war. You know, they are so upset about what's happening because since when last has the body of Christ had access into the White House? It wasn't that way under Reagan. They might come and go a little bit. It wasn't that way under Clinton. It wasn't that way under both Bushes. And it definitely wasn't that way under Obama. But we have a president that's opened the door for the body of Christ. And that is huge, whichever way you want to look at it. And let me tell you, you know, everybody's moaning Republican, Democrat. He actually is neither. He's basically a populist that the American people voted for. They put a businessman in the White House because things are so fouled up. Well, if you want to really see fouled up, go to Congress and go sit and talk to he's been there since '96. So he knows everything about what's going on. And I can tell you the games that are being played, how they're actually trying to set the president up in every way. So, but when he told me what he said, that they are planning, the talk on the Hill is the plan that suddenly he'll be removed. So what we're going to do, we're going to launch it today as a 24-hour prayer initiative to pray around the clock, and we do it across the nation, around the world, for the protection of the president.
Wow, the Red Pill Church of Christ there. No, that is actually Revival Ministries International, Rodney Howard Brown, addressing a leading congressman, telling him the plans to take out Trump. Of course, we've known about this. We've had witches praying against Trump. We've seen the Trump effigies, the Trump head with the CNN Kathy Griffin. So we've known this plan. They've been trying to push this into the mainstream. We know what they did, and they got their lunatic Bernie supporter to go out and try to assassinate Republicans when they were practicing baseball. So we know what's going on, David, but it's starting to enter the mainstream now. More people feel like they're willing to talk about it. And I thought it was powerful what the pastor said there about President Trump having the body of Christ in the White House.
Well, as Christians, we understand that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness. So that's the key. That's what he's talking about. And so the prayers that we see, latest one is Lana Del Rey. As we said before, you know, she's just another Pop-Tart who is toast, because we don't really care what she has to pray about. There's a power in praying for the president, but we have to understand also there's something else involved here, and that is the drumbeat, the constant drumbeat of false news that's coming out of the mainstream media. And this is addressed by Tammy Bruce, who is a contributor on Fox News, also the Washington Times. I want to play a clip of that for you and let you hear what she has to say about the way the narrative is being spun. The Democrats want you to look at what Trump says, because he's not as articulate and as polished as a professional politician. He's not a communicator. He is a doer. Yeah, he's not a lawyer. He is a doer. He is a businessman. So they don't want you to see what he's done. They don't want you to see what he's accomplished. They want you to listen to his speech, and then they're the ones who have the slick tongues, but they don't accomplish anything. I mean, the DNC is like $3.3 million in debt. That's what they want to do to the rest of the country. That's what they've done in the areas that they control. But let's listen to what Tammy Bruce had to say on Fox News.
Will, an irrelevant club.
Sipping.
And they think it's going to be a slogan. If any Americans learned anything over the last decade, it's that you got to look at what people do, not what they say. Now, as we've seen, the Democrats, of course, they want you to only look at what Donald Trump says, not what he does, because his agenda has been so successful. But on their end, they want you to only hear what they say, because they have done things, and they've ruined people's lives. That's their problem, and they think that this is going to solve it. They've got another thing coming.
But when they focus on what he has to say, Owen, we see this article that's on Infowars.com from Zero Hedge. Support for Trump's impeachment is now higher than it was for Richard Nixon. And they're pointing out that for Nixon, it was 24% of the people who were favoring impeachment. But for Trump, it is now 41%. So 24% for Nixon, 41% for Trump. Why is that? That is a very dangerous metric as they start to get to the 50% rate, as it's getting higher and higher. Because when we look at what happened recently, we had a couple of people that have come up for parole. We've had Dennis Hastert, who's getting out of jail. We've had O.J. Simpson getting out of jail. They went to jail not for the putative crime so much as for the fact that Hastert was a pedophile. Everybody knew he was a pedophile, but they couldn't get a conviction because we have this idiotic idea here in the United States that there ought to be some kind of a statute of limitations for pedophiles. There shouldn't be. And of course, we see Cardinal Pell being called back to Australia because they eliminated their statute of limitations for pedophilia. They couldn't get a conviction for murder, so they tried to put O.J. Simpson in. They tried to keep him in on some extraneous charges that they brought up before he went to the parole board at the very last minute. That didn't work either. But both of them really went to jail, not so much for getting back sports memorabilia from somebody, and certainly not for the non-crime of taking out. It is a crime. And, of course, Dennis Hastert is responsible for it being a crime. He was the longest-serving Republican Speaker of the House we've ever had. And so when they make a financial crime out of withdrawing your own money from the bank, money that they've already looked at when you put it into the bank, money that was not obtained illegally, money that was not any tax avoidance issue, but simply the fact that he structured his withdrawals, they said, to avoid detection. They sent him to jail on that. So they come up with these minor things. That's what they will do to Donald Trump if they believe that the American public believes that he needs to be taken out of office for some nebulous idea having to do with some Russian collusion or whatever it is that they can bring against him. If they can get public opinion to do that, they'll come up with some absurd charge and they'll make it stick in the same way that we saw that happen with Dennis Hastert with O.J. Simpson.
Well, and if you go back to that poll, I think that this is kind of a visual that you can see directly how the mainstream media's hold on the thoughts and minds and hearts of the public is losing its grip. Even Nixon did not experience this type of from all angles attack that President Trump has from all members of the media. And still, you know, they want to get the point of the public interest in Trump to impeach, to impeach him up to the certain point. So then they think they can go through with it, but they can't get there. They cannot get to that point. They do not have the grip on the American public that they used to have. So they keep struggling. And that's why they want you to listen to what he says and not what he does, because they edit what he says. They focus on the negative of what he says. This guy is talking for 3-4 hours a day in public. In fact, he's got another meeting today, 2:15 here Central Time, 3:15 Eastern Time, where he's giving a public address on the current state of health care. So, of course, when President Trump is talking for 3 hours a day, you can edit it down, pick and choose what you want to get out there to try to paint President Trump as to whatever you want to paint him as, instead of looking at the actual fruits. Last night on Lou Dobbs, they were highlighting all the accomplishments of Trump. A lot of people are doing this right now. He's had, I think it was 115 record stock closures.
Yeah.
115.
Yeah. Let's talk about the economy here, because we got a story from the AP today saying U.S. home sales fell in June. Why? Because the economy is so strong, buyers can't find homes, and the prices are going up quite a bit. That's a strong economy. It is demand is outpacing supply. That's a good thing. We got the Tea Party finally winning an 8-year battle with the IRS. This is the Albuquerque Tea Party. They've had hundreds of conservative Tea Parties. You remember the corruption in the IRS. That was one of the reasons that